I'm Amber Spiegel of SweetAmbs Cookies, and I'm thrilled to share some of my favorite decorated cookie designs for every season with you. I've been a cookie decorator for over 15 years, and I've traveled the world teaching others how to make amazing edible works of art. You can learn how to make these beautiful and delicious creations yourself by joining my Cookie Art Club online. That's where I share all of my recipes, full-length video tutorials, and tips and tricks for making incredible cookies with royal icing. In the Cookie Art Club, you can meet other cookie decorating enthusiasts just like you, and you can even share photos of your cookie creations with me to get feedback or just to show the group what you've been working on. I always love seeing your amazing decorated cookies. Scan the QR code or visit the link below to start your 7-day free trial. Now let me show you some of my favorite seasonal delights. Fall is a great time of year to bake and decorate cookies. My fall cookie recipes like pumpkin spice, cinnamon, sugar, and orange cranberry are perfect for creating beautiful autumn designs, and they're all available in the Cookie Art Club. Let me show you how to make these polka dot pumpkin cookies with royal icing roses and chrysanthemums that are perfect for any fall celebration. The first thing I'll do is cut pumpkin-shaped cookies from a chilled sheet of cookie dough. I try to keep the cookies in the cutter when I transfer them to the baking sheet so that they keep their shape. These cookies will go into the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 to 10 minutes. If you have a convection oven, reduce the temperature to 325. I like to bake my cookies on a perforated baking mat because it helps the cookies bake evenly and stay nice and flat, which is what we want for decorating cookies with royal icing. The full recipe is available in the Cookie Art Club. Now that the cookies are completely cool, I'm using an edible ink marker to draw the sections of the pumpkin. I'll use this as a guide when I ice my cookies. For the next step, I'll be using flood consistency royal icing. The icing starts out as stiff consistency and you'll need to add water to thin it down. To test the icing consistency, take a scoop of icing out of the bowl and drop it back in. It should take between 15 and 20 seconds to be completely smooth. This is flood consistency royal icing. My royal icing recipe, along with a detailed guide on royal icing consistencies and instructions on how to fill a decorating bag, are available in the Cookie Art Club. I'm icing every other section of this pumpkin cookie with light blue flood consistency royal icing and a decorating tip number 3. Then I'll use my scribe tool to help fill in any gaps and help shape the icing to fit in the guidelines. While the base layer is still wet, I'm piping polka dots using white flood consistency royal icing and a decorating tip number 1, which is a smaller decorating tip than the one I used earlier for the blue icing. This is called the wet on wet technique. It allows me to make designs that dry completely flat using 2 or more icing colors. I'll set the cookie aside for about 30 minutes to let the icing crust over before I fill in the rest of the cookie with blue icing and white polka dots. I'll set the cookies aside to dry while I work on the royal icing flowers. To make roses, I'm using stiff consistency royal icing and a petal-shaped decorating tip. This is a tip number 101. Hold the decorating bag so that the wide end of the decorating tip is facing down toward the parchment paper and pipe a mound of icing. Then wrap a ribbon of icing around the center, making the opening at the top as small as you can. Pipe 3 petals around that, making sure the petals overlap a little bit. Detailed instructions on how to pipe a royal icing rose are available in the Cookie Art Club. For the chrysanthemum, I'm using stiff consistency royal icing and a decorating tip 59S, which is a curved petal tip. Holding the tip so that the wide end is down, pipe a ring of petals using a zigzag motion to create a ruffled edge. Pipe 3 more layers of petals, making each layer smaller than the last. All of the supplies that I used for the cookies you'll see here are listed in the Cookie Art Club. Remove the flour from the nail and set it aside to dry. Use the yellow stiff consistency icing and the decorating tip 59S to pipe a stem on the pumpkin cookies. Set the flowers and the cookies aside to dry overnight. My cookie recipes were developed with long drying times in mind, so you don't have to worry about the cookies while the icing dries. To add more life to these chrysanthemums, I'm painting them with gel food coloring. I dilute the food coloring with vodka because it evaporates very quickly, which means that it won't dissolve the royal icing as you paint. Painting with gold is a similar process to painting with food coloring. This time I'm using edible gold powder with a few drops of vodka mixed in. You can also use flavored extracts for this technique as long as they're alcohol-based. There are alcohol-free edible paint activators on the market that are meant to be used with royal icing, so that's another great option for painting with food coloring. I'm adding leaves to the flowers with stiff consistency royal icing and a leaf tip 352. To pipe leaves, hold the tip so that the V shape is on the sides. Squeeze the bag while holding the tip in place to let the icing build up. Release the pressure and pull the bag away to complete the leaf. Here are the finished fall cookies. The full list of ingredients, supplies, and instructions are in the Cookie Art Club. You'll find tons of cookie tutorials and recipes there, along with other creators who are as excited about cookie art as you are. In the Cookie Art Club, my full-length tutorials will take you through all kinds of designs for all kinds of occasions. Scan the QR code or visit the link below to start your 7-day free trial. One of my favorite ways to celebrate the holidays is by baking cookies, of course. These beautiful Christmas trees decorated with pastel shades and whimsical gold branches are a simple yet elegant design to add to your cookie platter this year. I'm icing these gingerbread cookies with flood consistency royal icing in pale shades of blue, green, pink, and purple, and a decorating tip number 3. The scribe tool helps bring the icing a little bit closer to the edge. Notice that I still leave some of the cookies showing. That allows the icing to spread without falling off the edge of the cookie. I find that icing the cookies without a stiff outline gives the cookies a cleaner look. Detailed instructions on how to flood a cookie with royal icing are in the Cookie Art Club. I'm going to set these cookies aside to dry overnight. Now that the icing is completely dry, I'll pipe a whimsical branch design with a golden brown shade of medium consistency royal icing and a decorating tip number 2. I'm starting on the outside and moving in toward the center. That will help keep my lines thicker on the outer edge and tapered at the ends. I'll set these cookies aside to dry for about 20 to 30 minutes. I've placed a small scoop of edible gold luster dust into a small dish, and I'm adding a few drops of vodka so that I can use it as a paint. Remember, you can also use any flavor extract or an edible paint activator for this method. Now I'll paint the golden brown icing with the edible gold paint. This part is so relaxing for me. Here are the finished pastel Christmas tree cookies. Remember that you can find the full list of supplies and recipes in the Cookie Art Club. The holidays may be over, but winter has just begun. Let's build a snowman out of cookies and icing. I'm placing my snowman templates underneath a piece of parchment paper wrapped around a board. Using my template as a guide, I'm filling in the arms and legs with white flood consistency royal icing and a decorating tip 2 to make royal icing transfers. I'll switch the decorating tip to a number 1 before filling in the eyes and nose. Now that these royal icing transfers are completely dry, I'll use an edible ink marker to color in the face. Leave a couple of small white dots in the eyes to create reflections. Now onto the cookies. I'm tracing my template onto this baked and cooled cookie with an edible ink marker, and I'll fill it in with white flood consistency icing and a decorating tip 3. Then I'll use the scribe tool to help shape the icing. Once I'm finished, I'll set the cookies aside to dry overnight. This is a piece of tissue paper that I've placed over the template. I'll trace the scarf with an edible ink marker, then I'll place the tissue paper over my cookie and trace the scarf again, this time pressing harder so that the ink goes through the tissue paper and onto the icing. Now I'm tracing the hat template on the cookie with the edible ink marker. I'll use these outlines as a guide to fill in the scarf and hat. For the next step, I'll be using an edible adhesive. I'm brushing it onto the face and body of the snowman, avoiding the scarf. Now I'll dip the cookie into a dish of granulated sugar. This will add a snowy texture. To fill in the scarf, I'm using stiff consistency icing that I thin down a little bit with a couple of drops of water. This is a decorating tip 1, and I'm moving it back and forth to create texture in the scarf. I made this scarf with red and teal stripes, but feel free to change the colors to create any pattern you like. I'll do the same on the hat and add a little pom-pom. Now I'm going to carefully remove the royal icing transfers from the parchment paper. It makes them easier to remove if you cut the paper into smaller pieces. I'll use edible adhesive and granulated sugar to add that snowy texture to the arms and legs, and I'll attach all of the pieces to the snowman using a little bit of icing on the back. Here are the finished cookies. Very cute if I do say so myself. Visit the Cookie Art Club for more holiday and winter cookie tutorials and recipes. Few things make me happier than showing you how to make the beautiful creations you're seeing here. I started the Cookie Art Club so that I could show everyone with a desire to create how to express themselves through cookie art. So if you want to learn my techniques and tricks, meet other cookie decorating enthusiasts, and astound your friends and family with these designs, please join us. Scan the QR code or visit the link below to start your 7-day free trial. There's so much cookie inspiration to be found in the springtime. Let me show you a couple of different ways to make a floral design using the wet-on-wet technique. I'm cutting plaque-shaped cookies from a chilled sheet of my orange cardamom cookie dough. I designed these cookie cutters with Ann Clark cookie cutters, and you can find them online by searching SweetAmbs small plaque cookie cutters. Now that my cookies are baked and completely cool, I'm covering the cookie with flood consistency royal icing and a decorating tip 3. Don't worry about applying it too neatly because we're using the scribe tool to fix it up. While the black icing is still wet, I'm piping light pink ovals with flood consistency royal icing and a decorating tip 3. Now I'll pipe a swirl of icing in each oval with a darker shade of pink. The icing is still wet at this point, and I'm using my scribe tool to help shape the ovals into roses. To do this, I'm starting at the top of the oval and making a small swirl, and then making curved sweeping motions underneath to shape the petals. To make the leaves, I'm piping dots of light green flood consistency icing, and I'll pipe a smaller dot of darker icing on top. I'm dragging the scribe tool through the dots to create a leaf shape. Now I'm piping tiny yellow dots with flood consistency icing in between the roses. You can also make this design larger by making one big oval in the center of the cookie. Once the icing is completely dry, you can add a bead border with stiff consistency royal icing and a decorating tip 3. Detailed instructions on how to pipe a bead border are in the Cookie Art Club. Experiment with different colors to create your own unique flowers using the wet-on-wet royal icing technique. Visit the Cookie Art Club to find more wet-on-wet royal icing designs. Next, I'll show you how to make these colorful butterfly and mushroom cookies. This is another design that uses the wet-on-wet royal icing technique. I'm starting out with an outline of black flood consistency icing. And I'll fill in the wings with teal and purple, and I'll finish with pink in the center. I want a little bit of pink icing on my scribe tool, so I'll dip it into the pink icing and then drag it through the wing, starting on the outside edge and working in toward the center of the butterfly. By not wiping your scribe tool clean in between each swipe, it creates a really neat effect on the outer edge of the wings. Now I'll repeat that design on the other side. I'm working with one side at a time so that the icing doesn't dry before I have a chance to create the design with my scribe tool. I'll set these aside to dry for about an hour, and then I'll pipe a body with black medium consistency icing and a decorating tip number 8. Then I'll use my scribe tool to help shape it. Let the body dry for about 20 minutes before piping the head so that you can keep the definition between the two parts. I'm icing the stem of this mushroom cookie with white flood consistency icing, and I'll use my scribe tool to help shape it. Then I'll let the icing dry for about an hour. I'm piping a wavy line of stiff consistency icing along the bottom of the mushroom cap. Then I'll use a damp brush to brush the icing in an upward motion. This will create texture in the icing. Now I'll cover the rest of the mushroom cookie in flood consistency icing, and I'll use my scribe tool to help shape it. You can use any colors you like. I'm using colors that match the butterfly cookies. While the icing is still wet, I'm piping dots using a lighter shade of fluid consistency icing. I think this is such a cute little detail on these mushroom cookies. Give them a few taps to help smooth out the icing. Come join me in the Cookie Art Club for the supply list and to gather more spring cookie inspiration. Scan the QR code or visit the link below to start your 7-day free trial. Need a unique dessert to bring to a summer party? These decorated cookies will be a hit. Let me show you how to make these patriotic cookies with a fun surprise inside. I'm splitting my cookie dough into 3 equal parts. I'll mix in a couple of drops of food coloring to make one piece red and another piece blue. I'll leave one piece white. I'm wrapping the cookie dough in plastic wrap and I'll chill it for about 30 minutes. This will help to relax the dough and allow the color to develop. Now I'll create a multicolored sheet of dough by putting pieces of each color together. I'm placing a piece of parchment paper over the dough so that it doesn't stick to my rolling pin, and I'll roll this until it's a little less than 1/4 inch thick. This will go back into the refrigerator to firm up before I cut it. I'm going to cut a hole in the center of each of these cookies to make room for sprinkles. We'll need 2 of these pieces for each cookie to make a nice big space. We'll also need a solid top piece and a solid bottom piece. Gently press the scraps together to re-roll them and cut more cookies. I'm adding a few drops of vodka to food coloring, just like I did earlier when painting the royal icing chrysanthemums. Now I'm drawing the sections of the bow with an edible ink marker. I'll ice each section with flood consistency royal icing and a decorating tip 3. I'm icing the top 2 sections first because I'll be painting the icing while it's still wet and I don't want it to dry before I apply the paint. I'm using the scribe tool to help shape the icing. Now I'll apply stripes of the edible paint to the wet icing and I'm dragging my scribe tool through the icing to create a tie-dye effect. To make the tie-dye look more realistic, I'm making some shorter strokes with the scribe tool in between the longer ones. I'm skipping the next section and moving on to the tails. This way I'll be able to keep the definition between all of the sections and they won't run into each other. I'll paint the tails just like I did the bow loops. The tails will need to dry for about 20 to 30 minutes before icing and painting the next section. Let the icing dry again before making the center of the bow. I'll set the cookies aside to dry overnight. I'm outlining the sections of the bow with stiff consistency royal icing that I thinned down a little bit with a few drops of water and a decorating tip number 1. To assemble the cookies, I'm piping some icing on the back of one of the center pieces with the hole in it. I'm attaching it to the base and then I'll attach another one on top. I'll fill it up with sprinkles and then I'll attach the top piece. These cookies are fun to make and fun to eat. The best part about these ice cream cookies, aside from being delicious, is that they won't melt in the summer heat. Let me show you how to make them. This is a unique way to create a waffle cone texture on your ice cream cone cookies. I'm piping a diamond pattern with stiff consistency royal icing and a decorating tip 2. I'm going to let this dry for about 15 minutes. I'm holding the cookie over a dish of golden brown royal icing that's a little bit thinner than my usual flood consistency. Now I'm spooning the icing over the cookie and letting the excess drip off. You can use the scribe tool to help remove some of the icing. I'll set these cookies aside to dry for about an hour. To make the ice cream, I'm using a decorating tip 3 with stiff consistency royal icing that's been thinned down a little bit with a few drops of water. I'm swirling my scribe tool around the icing to add texture. I'll add some swirls of icing at the bottom of this scoop of ice cream. Then I'll use my scribe tool again to add texture. I'll do the same thing with some white royal icing. can add some icing to the bottom to make it look like it's dripping over the side of the cone. Now let's add some toppings. You can use my chocolate royal icing recipe from the Cookie Art Club for the chocolate sauce. This is flood consistency royal icing and a decorating tip 3. I'm using my scribe tool to help shape the icing. While the icing is still wet, I'll add some sprinkles. You can use the scribe tool to help push them into place. Don't these look delicious? Visit the Cookie Art Club for the full supply list and more summer cookie ideas. I started the Cookie Art Club so that I could show everyone with a desire to create how to express themselves through cookie art. So if you want to learn my techniques and tricks, meet other cookie decorating enthusiasts, and astound your friends and family with these designs, please join us. Scan the QR code or visit the link below to start your 7-day free trial. I hope you enjoyed seeing some of my favorite cookie designs for every season and that you feel inspired to decorate your own cookies with royal icing. Join me in the Cookie Art Club to get all of my recipes, full-length video tutorials, and personalized cookie decorating advice. You can also pick up my book, Cookie Canvas, wherever books are sold online. Thanks for watching. If you make any of these designs, please share them with me on social media at SweetAmbs, or post your photos in the Cookie Art Club. Scan the QR code or visit the link below to start your 7-day free trial. Can't wait to see you there.